Joining us now is Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, a Fox News contributor. Newt, Trump isn't pro-Putin, isn't it all is pro-Putin strategy? Isn't it all a little tired at this point? Are the American people buying any of this?
Let me say, first of all, I thought your interview last night was terrific and that you did a great job of drawing out of Trump a number of observations and a tone which was as good as I think I've ever seen him. So I really commend you for last night's town hall meeting. But let's be honest about where we are, because it's, I think, very frightening. You have a Biden administration failing in the Middle East. You have a Biden administration which collapsed in Afghanistan. You have a Biden administration which in 2 years has not come up with a strategy for winning in Ukraine. And the world's getting dramatically more dangerous. And in the meantime, you have a Secretary of State who thinks one of his most important jobs is to send out a letter reminding all of the State Department employees to worry about their gender and to put their appropriate gender name with their emails. I mean, this is an absurdity. They have to attack and lie about Trump because the truth will destroy them. The truth is that they're undermining Israel at this very moment. The truth is that they've failed totally to intimidate the Houthis, who hit 3 ships in the last couple days. They failed totally to intimidate the Iranians, who continue to expand their terrorist operations across the Middle East. They have absolutely failed to figure out a strategy to stop Putin. And let me say, I warned as early as 2014 during the Crimean fiasco, when Obama collapsed totally, that sanctions don't work against Putin. Putin is as former Secretary of Defense said, Bob Gates said, he is a stone-cold killer. He's a KGB-trained operative, and you have to deal with him at that level of toughness. And the idea of Joe Biden trying to deal with Putin is silly. Donald Trump was right last night when he told you. He's the one who sent real weapons, which Obama wanted to send them meals ready to eat and sleeping bags and non-lethal things. Trump actually sent real weapons to Ukraine. Trump actually cut off the Russian pipeline. Trump was much tougher. And then Biden comes along and goes back to appeasement, and the appeasement fails. And I'm confident that Putin has total contempt for Biden.
Now, one of the things that I thought about last night when President Trump was answering these questions was, it's easy to come out and say, you know, Putin's a war criminal, Putin's evil. That's easy, right? But I think what he's thinking is, I may have to broker or help broker or encourage a negotiated settlement between that guy and Zelensky. If I'm president, and so I think he's thinking ahead. He's not a politician, so he's not going to just come out and blurt out, contrary to what they think, you know, oh, he's a killer. Yeah, okay, that doesn't get you anywhere. I think he's thinking February of 2025, what is he going to be dealing with Putin? Do you agree with that?
Well, look, I mean, he's been very clear about this, that he believes that he can negotiate from a position of absolute strength and can convince both Ukraine and Russia, meaning Putin, that they need to get to a truce. Here's the problem for the Ukrainians. They're not going to beat Russia. We can provide them lots more weapons. They can lose a lot more people. But if this goes on for 2 or 3 or 4 more years, it's really a tragedy. And I think what Trump's trying to think through is, how do you end this without strengthening Putin? And how do you end this so Ukraine survives as an independent country? That is a long way from the rhetoric of Joe Biden.
And Newt, just before the show, we learned that the Biden administration is considering, I guess more seriously now, an executive action on the border. A source telling Fox Business's Ed Lawrence that it would restrict the ability of migrants crossing the U.S. border illegally to get asylum. Wait a second, Newt. I brought this up with Trump, too, last night. Wait, they said they had no executive authority. This is wild. They are really flailing. From Russia collusion to now they're Trump on the border. Okay.
Let me just say bluntly, it's all a lie. This is an administration dedicated to keeping the border open, dedicated to allowing thousands of Chinese males of military age to cross the border, dedicated to allowing a Venezuelan gang that's very violent, which we saw beating up New York policemen. I don't know why they're so passionate about keeping the border open. They could have agreed to a border deal with the Congress, and they could have gotten aid to Israel and to Ukraine and a package. And the border to them, keeping it open and keeping illegal immigrants flowing into the U.S. was more important than helping Ukraine and Israel.
Newt, always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.